Welcome to episode 226 of OTD, your daily dose of soccer history by 17 Laws Guy. It's June 14, 1990. Bari, Stadio San Nicola, Cameroon against Romania, and a 30-year-old substitute is about to change the visual language of football. His name is Roger Milla, and today, after scoring for Cameroon, he does something simple. He runs to the corner flag. He lifts one arm. He shakes his hips. He dances. Not wildly, not for long, but just enough, and suddenly the goal celebration becomes more than a release. It becomes a signature. But how did we get here? To understand Cameroon in 1990, start with African football's long World Cup climb. Egypt had literally missed the boat in 1930, yet became the continent's first representative in 1934. Then Africa largely disappeared from the tournament until Morocco in 1970. Zaïre's 1974 campaign became remembered through humiliation and misunderstanding. Tunisia beat Mexico in 1978, giving Africa its first World Cup win. Algeria shocked West Germany in 1982, then were pushed out by the West Germany-Austria non-aggression pact in Réunion. Morocco reached the second round in 1986. So by 1990, serious observers knew African football had talent, but much of the wider football world still treated it as exotic, physical, naive, chaotic, and outside the tournament's core story. Cameroon had already challenged that. At Spain 82, they didn't lose a single match. They drew all three group games against Peru, Poland, and eventually champions Italy, and went out on goals scored. Roger Milla had been there. Thomas Nkono had been there. The world had seen something. Then Cameroon became a continental power. They won the Africa Cup of Nations in 84. They reached the final in 86. They won AFCON again in 88 under Claude Leroy. This was not a novelty side. It was the best sub-Saharan African team of its era. And then came the chaos. Leroy leaves after the 88 AFCON triumph. Cameroon's new coach is Valeri Nepomniachtchi, a Russian sent originally to work in youth development. He speaks little French. He has almost no experience at this level. He takes over a group full of strong personalities, European-based professionals, domestic players, political interference, federation intrigue, and pressure from a country that expects results. Still, Cameroon qualify. They top a group containing Nigeria, Angola, and Gabon, then beat Tunisia 3-0 on aggregate in the final round. They are going to Italy. Then they go to the 1990 AFCON and crash out in the group stage. The World Cup preparation is messy. In camp, there are stories of missing equipment, late buses, disciplinary disputes, players dropped and restored, and a squad that doesn't entirely trust its coach. And then there's Roger Milla. By 1990, Milla is already Cameroonian football royalty. He had been African Football of the Year in 1976. He had played in France for clubs including Valenciennes, Monaco, Bastia, Saint-Etienne, Montpellier. He had been part of Cameroon's 1982 World Cup team and their AFCON era. But now he's 38. He's not exactly retired, but he's no longer in the center of European football. He's playing for Saint-Pierroise on Réunion, out in the Indian Ocean, closer to semi-retirement than global stardom. Then he plays well in a testimonial. Back home, people start asking the obvious question, why is Roger Milla not in the World Cup squad? And when the president of Cameroon, Paul Biya, wants something, the national team structure listens. The story becomes legend. Presidential pressure, a decree, public demand, federation calculation, and a veteran suddenly summoned from the beach back into the world's biggest tournament. Milla arrives late. He's not fit enough to start. Some teammates are skeptical. Thomas Nkono helps persuade the group that this old man can still help them. And with one touch in training, according to the coach's later telling, Milla glides past defenders and scores. So he stays. Then Italy 1990 begins. Opening match, San Siro, Argentina against Cameroon, the defending world champions, Diego Maradona. Everyone expects Cameroon to lose. Then comes another internal drama. Joseph Antoine Bell, one of the great African goalkeepers, had been expected to start. But after a damaging interview criticizing the preparation and suggesting that losing 3-0 to Argentina would not be a disaster, he is dropped. Thomas Nkono, who thought he was on the bench, is suddenly in goal. He has to play against Maradona with almost no warning. Cameroon defend deep. They are physical, very physical. Andre Kanabiyik is sent off. Then Francois Oman Biik rises high in the Italian summer night and scores with a powerful header that Neri Pompidou cannot keep out. Benjamin Massing is later sent off for one of the most infamous fouls in World Cup history on Claudio Caniggia. Cameroon finished with 9 men, but they win 1-0. It is one of the great shocks in World Cup history. But it's not yet Roger Milla's day. Against Argentina, he comes on late. Against Romania, 4 days later in Bari, the match is still waiting for him. Cameroon and Romania are locked at 0-0. Romania have George Hagi, Marius Lakatos, Gabriel Balint, Johan Andone, and Silvio Lung. Cameroon are organized, but they need a spark. So around the hour mark, Nepomniachtchi sends for the old man. Roger Milla comes on, and for a while nothing magical happens. But then, in the 76th minute, the ball goes high, very high, a huge dropping ball towards the Romanian defense. Johan Andone misjudges it. He lets it bounce. That's the mistake. Milla senses it instantly. He moves towards Andone, uses his body, rolls the defender, enters the box, and finishes low with his left foot. Cameroon 1, Romania 0. The finish is cold. The celebration is warm. Milla runs away from goal, not toward teammates, not toward the bench, but toward the corner flag. He raises one arm, plants himself next to the flag, and wiggles his hips in this little burst of joy. It looks spontaneous, because it is. People later try to identify it as Makossa, the Cameroonian dance music style. Milla himself says no, it was just something he did, something that came to him in the moment. God's dance, he later called it. That's why it works. It's not a routine yet. It is a man rediscovering youth in front of the world. Then he does it again. In the 86th minute, after a half-cleared free kick, Milla is involved in a strange little piece of play where he seems to almost to pass to himself, loop around the defenders, take the ball into the area, and smash it beautifully in at the near post. Cameroon 2, Romania 0. Back to the corner flag, back to the hips, back to history. Romania pull one back through Balint almost immediately, but Cameroon win 2-1. They are through to the knockout stage. And Roger Milla, who began the tournament as a 30-year-old late call-up substitute from Réunion, is now the most joyful man in the World Cup. But so what? Well, Cameroon keep going. They lose 4-0 to the Soviet Union in the final group match, but still top the group. That alone is astonishing. Cameroon ahead of Romania, Argentina, and the Soviet Union. In the round of 16, they face Colombia. Another 0-0. Another match that needs Milla. In extra time, he scores again. A sharp turn, a burst, a high left-footed finish past René Higuita. Then Higuita, the great Colombian goalkeeper sweeper, comes out with the ball at his feet. Milla robs him. Empty net. 2-0. Colombia get one back, but Cameroon win 2-1. They're the first African team ever to reach a World Cup quarterfinal, and Milla dances again. The quarterfinal is England in Naples. Cameroon go 1-0 down. Milla comes on and changes the match. He wins the penalty that Emmanuel Koundé converts. Then he sends up Eugene Ekeke to make it 2-1. Cameroon are 25 minutes from a World Cup semi-final. Then Gary Lineker wins a penalty and converts. Extra time. Lineker wins and converts another penalty. England 3, Cameroon 2. Cameroon are out, but the world doesn't forget them. Italia 90 is not remembered as a great tournament for football quality. It is remembered for atmosphere, operatic drama, Gassa's tears, Argentina's survival, Schiracci's eyes, and Cameroon's joy, and Milla's dance. And Milla becomes the image. A 30-year-old striker, 4 goals, all from the bench, corner flag, dance. Africa has had his World Cup breakthrough. And Milla keeps rewriting age. In 1990, he becomes the oldest goal scorer in World Cup history at the time. Then in 94, he returns at 42 and scores against Russia. Cameroon lose 6-1, but Milla breaks his own record. He remains the oldest goal scorer in men's World Cup history. That is almost absurd. He's not just the old man who had one magical summer. He's the old man who came back and made the record older. His celebration matters. Now, we shouldn't overclaim. Roger Milla didn't invent celebrating goals. Tardelli's scream in the 1982 World Cup final came before him. It remains one of the most emotional celebrations ever filmed. Players had always hugged and jumped, slid, punched the air, kissed badges, and waved to crowds and lost their minds. But Milla did something different. He gave the World Cup one of its first repeatable, personal, globally copied celebrations. The celebration was not just emotion, it was identity. You saw the dance and instantly knew it was Roger Milla, the player. That is the modern line. Because after Milla, celebrations increasingly become part of the footballer's language. Bebeto rocks the baby at USA 94. If you're like me, you're right now about to rock your forearms from side to side. Iconic. Jürgen Klinsmann turns the dive into a joke in England. Robbie Keane cartwheels. Peter Crouch robots. Mario Balotelli stands still and asks, why? Why always him? Antoine Griezmann brings video game and pop culture dances. Kylian Mbappe folds his arms. Erling Haaland sits in meditation. Diego Jota and his PlayStation. Jude Bellingham opens his arms to the crowd. Lionel Messi points both fingers to the sky, a tribute to his grandmother. And Cristiano Ronaldo turns "see you" into a global call and response. Kids do it in schoolyards. Adults do it badly at weddings. Stadiums do it before the ball has even stopped moving. Now that we are enjoying the 2026 World Cup, we may still see Messi point to the sky or Ronaldo launch the "see you" on the biggest stage of all. If that happens, nobody will think it's strange that the goal celebration has choreography, memory, brand, tribute, and crowd participation all at once. Because today, the celebration is part of the goal. But in 1990, a 30-year-old Cameroonian running to a corner flag helped show the world how powerful that could be. And that is why June 14, 1990 matters. Not because Cameroon beat Romania, not only because Milla scored twice, but because football joy got a new shape. Before we go, 3 things to take away from June 14, 1990. First, Cameroon's 1990 run was not a miracle from nowhere. It came from a serious football nation, AFCON winners, World Cup veterans, and a team that had already pushed Italy in 1982, even if the preparation was chaotic. Second, Roger Milla's genius was timing. He was not fit enough to start, but he was perfect for the final half hour. Experience, calm, strength, instinct, and the confidence of a man with nothing left to prove. And third, the corner flag dance changed football memory. It didn't invent celebration, but it helped create the modern idea of the signature celebration, the goal as performance, the player as image, joy as identity. On this day in 1990, Roger Milla came off the bench for Cameroon against Romania, scored twice, ran to the corner flag, danced into global memory, and gave football maybe the OG iconic World Cup goal celebration. That is all for episode 226 of OTD, your daily dose of soccer history by 17 Lost Guy. If I can ask you one thing, please rate the show 5 stars. It helps trigger the algorithm to push the OTD up the charts and in front of new people. And please email me at otd@17lostguy.com if you have a question or an idea for the show. Tomorrow, we go to June 15, 1982, and the largest margin of victory in World Cup history. Hungary 10, El Salvador 1. A record scoreline, a hat-trick from the bench, and a match that still feels almost unreal. See you then.